Good day, Rolf Waldring. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to lead very creative, disciplined software development organizations, as well as a CEO, engage in a number of organizational turnarounds. One of the things I've learned is that people make decisions every day. You will today make many decisions, whether you're at work or away from work. And yet many people, most people, including the ones that I led, had very little insight into how they in fact made decisions. And a great deal of the conflict which I experienced among the people that I led had to do with differences in decision-making style rather than the creative conflict around content which led to better solutions. Let's explore this together. My name is Rolf Waldring. Self-awareness is something which increases your ability to interact effectively with other people at work and away from work. So let's take a look at how self-awareness around decision making can make you a more effective manager, team player, and leader of others. We really are marvelous creatures. We've evolved in tribes over hundreds of thousands of years to be very socially competent. Our brains are layered and they're additive brains. Evolution keeps adding abilities to them, some of which occur as conscious abilities in our upper brain, but many of our abilities are instinctual and operate at the preconscious level in the earlier parts of our brains to evolve. And that's what gives us both some of the great abilities we have, but also some of the blindnesses that we have when we think about being self-aware about how we prefer to do things. Many of our abilities, in fact, execute at the preconscious level in the lower parts of our brain as smart habits, which allow us to be very skilled, to respond in the moment without a lot of careful thought to the events that occur around us, including the way we interact with other individuals. But as a result of that, we lose touch with the nature of our abilities. It's only when people start to give us feedback about how we're behaving that we begin to understand that we may want to increase the range of ability we have, particularly when it comes to working with others. The way we need to do that is to work through this skill development cycle where feedback leads to us being aware of the fact that we need to increase our range of skill. Then through learning and coaching, we become consciously competent at that extended skill. We can do it when we think about it, and eventually through practice and application, it becomes a smart habit again. Because we're unaware of our personal preferences about how we want to make decisions, we often end up in conflicts with other people without fully understanding why. And watching this kind of conflict among the many people that I've managed and led, I become aware of the fact that differences about content of decisions lead to creativity, to construction, to new approaches. But differences about the style of decision making lead to bad feelings among people and confusion. And it's not too hard to clarify this and give each of us better skills around being able to understand when we're in a conflict that relates to our style, our personal preference for making decisions, or when we're in a constructive conflict around the content of decisions. In fact, we have two great examples of the basic way in which human beings make decisions, Mr. Spock and Dr. McCoy. Mr. Spock follows logic, Dr. McCoy considers the impact of decision options on other people. So when you listen to Mr. Spock in Star Trek, if you happen to watch how he behaves, you'll hear him talk about cause and effect, logical analysis. He reasons his way through the options which are available and chooses the one that he prefers. Whereas if you watch and listen to Dr. McCoy, he's constantly concerned about how will this option, this decision, impact the people who are affected. How will they think and react as a result of making the decision in this particular way? Now, when we're making a decision by ourselves, we don't have a lot of disagreement with ourselves. We work through the various options, whether we do that logically or whether we do that by considering the impact, and we decide. Often we do this in a way which is occurring in the preconscious parts of our brain, and we're not even consciously aware of the fact that we've made the decision. But when we work with other people, people who make decisions in the same way as we do, and people who make decisions in ways different from us, we become much more aware of the potential for conflict. And in fact, human beings have evolved in a way that allows us to make great and complex work-based decisions, which combine the best of logic and impact. In fact, when we make work-based decisions, we need to look at both sides. We can't just go with logical reasoning or impact on people. We need to think about both. Skill at work means being able to work well with people who make decisions like us, as well as people who make decisions in other ways. Now, it's easy to work with someone who likes us. If you're working with someone who follows logic and you're a follows logic kind of decision maker, you find that you can usually work through things and be quite creative about the conflict, about the content of the decisions that you have. And the same is true if you're working with people who consider impact, if you're a considers impact type decision maker. And the first step in being a more effective decision maker at work is to become self-aware, to understand whether you're like Mr. Spock, who makes decisions following logic, or you're like Dr. McCoy, who makes decisions considering the impact that the options have on people. Now, it's unlikely that you're a pure type, that you are a 5 on either end of the scale that you see here. Most people are somewhere in the middle, and in fact some people are perfectly balanced between the two. And so getting insight into your decision-making style requires you to start thinking about, how do I make decisions and where do I fall on this scale? There is no right way to make a decision. There's just a better consideration of the options which you're facing. And that better consideration involves being both logical and considering the impact your decision will have on other people. So one of the ways in which you develop smart habits around being a more effective group decision maker is to just listen to other people, listen to how they talk, because their language will give you lots of clues about whether they are a follows logic kind of decision maker or a considers impact kind of decision maker. And remember, this is a preference. This is the way they prefer to make decisions, not something that they're trapped into. Because of the way we evolved as human beings, we all have the flexibility to become self-aware and to become aware of differences in decision-making styles that different people have. Some people are pure, some people are mixed, but their language is always the key. If you listen to them carefully, you can figure out approximately where they fall on this scale. And that's what you need to know. But not only that, if you listen carefully, you become more sensitive to and therefore a more effective decision maker, because you're looking at both aspects of a great complicated decision. Its logical soundness as well as the impact the various choices you're making have on people. If you're in an argument with another person, it's really useful to step back and try to figure out, why am I in this argument with this person? Is it because we are approaching making the decision differently, or because we have a real difference around which option is the most reasonable one, whether we follow logic or consider impact, for us to choose? And you can develop this sensitivity very easily. Well, maybe not easily, but certainly comfortably, by thinking about other people and watching and observing them whenever you're in a meeting where you're not deeply plugged in to the content, to the thing which is under discussion. Look at a person and listen very carefully to the language they're using as they're participating in the decision making. And as you do that, you'll increase your awareness of whether this particular individual prefers to make decisions using logic, like Mr. Spock, or impact on people, like Dr. McCoy. One of the great things about being human is that 20% of the skills, the ones we acquire as part of growing up and as part of our education, get us through 80% of our life situations. Situations and people are well-intentioned and want to get along with one another, and want to work effectively with one another. It's the other 20% where we're emotionally impacted or under pressure or have to deliver something under a great deal of conflict that we need to grow our skills for. And this 80-20 mix is really important because the minute you become a manager or a member of a project team or a work group member or a leader of managers, a director, you're going to find yourself in more and more situations which require you to expand your skill set beyond the 20 that we all seem to acquire as part of growing up. Self-awareness and understanding how we are alike and different from others in our preferred behavior patterns, not our absolute, not our wired in, we can never change behavior patterns, is the backbone of all interpersonal effectiveness. The more you understand your own preferred behaviors and have insights into them, and the more you understand how they're the same and like those of the specific individuals you're working with when you're working in a team or a group, the more effective you'll be interpersonally. And you develop this awareness by getting feedback, because the more aware you are, the more you have a choice, not just behaving in a preferred way without thinking about it, but slowing down your behavior a little bit and thinking about how do I want to respond to this individual. And the more choices you have, the more you expand your range of abilities, the more freedom you have. And the more freedom you have at work, the more effective you're likely to be. Great work decisions require that we consider both sides of our preferred decision-making patterns, logic and impact on people. Every work decision needs to be reasonable from a logical point of view, but also needs to take into account the impact that the various options will have on people and how they're likely to respond. In fact, we became group decision makers. We evolved into group decision makers precisely because considering both aspects of decisions allows us to make more effective ones, better long-term consequential decisions, taking advantage of the fact that in groups we can access people who have preferences for both and therefore are strong in both. Really is an important part of what allowed us to become the dominant species on the planet. I've worked with direct reports for a large number of years, and I've used this particular profile for helping them get insight into the way that they prefer to make decisions and how that's alike and different from the other members of our managerial team. And we've combined that with insight into how we in fact interact with people using this profile. If you're interested in getting more insight into how groups make decisions, we can in fact work with you to develop a group profile which allows people to begin to understand this. In fact, the Competency Styles Coaching Program is designed to do exactly this: increase individual interpersonal effectiveness, but also increase the interpersonal interaction and effectiveness of a work group. If you're interested in this, please go to these websites to find out more. And if you're interested in the underpinnings of this, and you're a reader and you enjoy reading, any of these books will give you more insight into how we evolved as powerful group work creatures, an ability which has allowed us to develop our modern civilization and world.